Hi, I'm Marc-Julien. I'm going to give you a brief tutorial on how I achieved the bubbling effect in the hot tub in my world Space Patio. So I'll see you there. I first created the particle system that I used for the hot tub in order to achieve this effect. And it's actually the same script that runs that, and also the call them anti-gravity lines on the dance floor. So let's go to the hot tub. Whoa! Big jump. So this is what the bubbles look like right now. I'll go into the script block to show you how it works. Actually, no, first I will show you what it looks like under the water. So these are the emitters, and that's what the bubbles look like. But then above the surface, it just looks like regular bubbles. So the projectile launcher here's the that should be one. Doesn't really make a difference. This is the light blue projectile launcher, and this is the dark blue one, and that's the only difference between the two of them. They have a launch speed of 1. The projectile preset is sphere, and gravity is set to 1, and the scale is 0.3. The trail length, I'm not sure if it really makes a difference in this case, but I needed it to basically have no tail. And I think I played around with a few things. I don't know why it's 0.001, but you can play around with the settings. The actual script, because I started working on it over here, and that's where I remember it being, is called Random Launch. When the world is started, I used to set this original rotation to the rotation of the projectile launcher that this is attached to. For various reasons, I'm now setting it explicitly and changing it for the needs of whatever effect that I'm looking for. I set the original position to the position of the emitter at the time. At first, because I'm moving that emitter around, it kept moving on me, and I was sort of getting sick of moving it back. For this to work properly, I'm finding that when I move the emitter, I have to move it back, so that's why you see it sort of rotating around but staying in one spot, even though it's emitting from all these different points. A little bit more on that later. So, just because I've got a lot going on at the very beginning of this world, I start the loop a little bit after everything else has had a chance to initialize. This is the main loop. I generate 2 different random numbers that will set the position of where it's emitting from. Maximum offset is something that I set on a per use basis that represents how far it will move within the certain boundary that I've set up. I rotate this because for certain effects, like for instance for the fire and for the bubbles, I want the launch not to be straight up or straight down, but to be at an angle. And I set angle variance. The default is 0 because this was the original use for this particular script. I set an iterator to move up by the rotation step that I want, modulus 360, so that anytime it goes over 360, it just loops back down. I move the emitter. Sorry, I keep calling it an emitter, and it is actually a projectile launcher. So I've been calling it different things, but my brain is mush. So the projectile launcher gets moved to its original position plus a vector that represents an X and Z offset with a Y of 0. I'm just moving it around this plane. And the maximum offset divided by 2 is subtracted from the random number, so that its center point, it moves around its center point, basically. I launch the projectile, I move the emitter back to its original position so that stopping and starting the world doesn't cause me grief. And that's it. So you can... oh, right. Sorry, the loop doesn't loop regularly. It loops between 0 and 0.2 for this effect, but I can set it to whatever I want. So if I want to have it emitting in a more jerky fashion, I can. The default settings that I'm using pretty much work to create this effect when you give the projectile launcher a speed of 2, gravity of 0. I don't really want these to accelerate, I just want them to come straight down. And a small scale and a trail length of 0.3, and I give it a nice sort of light blue color. I am turning on static collision so that this doesn't go all the way through. Over here, the fire, which looks like this, is using a trick that I think Oculus was doing this to make flames. Here you can see that I'm not only sending it off from multiple locations, but I am having it rotate around a little bit to give sort of a swirling fire effect. And this here is an invisible cube that I have to help control how high up these go. So these are rockets that are firing downwards, but with gravity going upwards, it makes them go up. And then the size of the effect is set to 0 so that you don't see the rocket. When you do that, you still do see the flames. You just undo this, and that's going to make it so that the maximum distance these rockets reach is here, which will limit the height of the fire. Find the emitter. So I'm using the rocket projectile preset. I'm giving it a bit of a color. You have to play around with the projectile color. If it were all white, you'd get white rockets, but you would get red to yellow colored flame. If you change the projectile color, you have to play around with it to see what the result is. But I've got a speed of 0.2 and my start rotation to 90 degrees, which means it's rotating that down, because the sort of the default direction of one of these is sideways. Angle variance is high, so that it's tilted over quite a bit, and then it rotates around that in steps of 30 degrees. The delay min and delay max are both 0.9, so it's relatively regular, but a longer delay. Like I don't want it firing as quickly as the anti-gravity effects that I've got. Excuse me. And right, gravity is set to minus 0.1, so that the rockets, which are fired very slowly downwards, end up floating up and accelerating, and with a big trail length scale. I don't remember exactly what effect it has on the fire. One thing to bear in mind is if you're firing a lot of projectiles really quickly, it interrupts the ones that have been fired a while ago. That's why even if I didn't have this, it wouldn't go up to infinity, because it's reusing the projectiles that reach up to there in order to fire new ones. I don't know what the maximum number of projectiles is, but I'm hitting it and using it deliberately. This effect, I'm actually using the grenade. Let's see if we can see one. Whoop. But very small, because I really like how the trail looks. And so on the dance floor, I just wanted to have an effect that implies that there's some sort of anti-gravity in order to justify the fact that when you jump on the dance floor, you jump really high. Oh, those particles that are coming down, I think, are because the collisions for these objects isn't entirely accurate. That's why sometimes you can fall off even if it doesn't look like you're falling off of it. So yeah, that's how the hot tub works. There's a little bit of horizontal velocity because of that angle variance variable that I set, so that the bubbles don't just appear and disappear. They appear and move and disappear. So yeah, that's how the bubbles work. It doesn't use a lot of resources. Replacing the hover effects that I had for these tables with particle effects, I saved, because I used to have 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly 4 or 5 of them. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I saved a ton of capacity. And I basically reused the fire effect, but within the script that handles the user falling off, in order to make flames appear when you're burning up on re-entry. And everything had an orange cast because of that orange square that you saw, which I'm attaching to your face when you fall off. Yeah. Alright. Well, I hope that was informative, and that I didn't ramble on too long. Have a good one. Bye. Bye.